Yeah, because from what I last checked, kids don't have time of an afternoon.
Yeah, that's
They've got to go to soccer, and then they've got to go to karate, then jiu-jitsu, and then...
Well, there's always that, of course. But like today in class, I had the student go, "We've already done this, sir." And I thought, well, it's the wrong thing to say. It's I've already learnt this, sir. You may have done it, but have you learnt it?
Yeah.
If you haven't learnt it, then you've got to do it again, sorry. And so in the task, it became obvious you haven't learnt it. So let's learn it this time rather than just do it.
So we've got Paul Rikmanis, who is a legend in the field of teaching mathematics. He's got 30 years teaching mathematics.
Yes.
He's held head mathematics teaching positions.
Yeah.
He knows kids. He's got, like, if 8 years you get a doctorate, he's got how many doctorates in teaching young minds how to think critically?
Yeah, actually, to be honest, it's probably when I became a teacher for arrogance because I didn't like the way I was taught when I was at school.
I wonder how many teachers did that.
And particularly I didn't like the way I was taught mathematics, and I kind of thought, there's so much more to mathematics than what you're showing me here in this textbook. I want to know what that is, and then I want to transfer and pass that on. And for 25 years, I pretty much taught almost exactly the same way as I was taught at school.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's scary.
It was the demands of the job, it was that rush, it was that time, it was like learning how to teach is an art form. It doesn't come straight away, it doesn't come overnight. You don't walk out of university knowing how to teach. Yeah. And particularly not knowing how to teach a wide range of students and a wide range of situations, scenarios. You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the first time you have a kid hiding in a cupboard is a unique experience. You know, I'm sure you have that in primary. Anyway, or kids swearing, or kids threatening to hit you, blah blah. It was only actually a couple of years ago, well, 5 years ago or so, that I had started to read other people's blogs. Yeah. Again, after a bit of arrogance of looking at blogs and going, what would someone who's younger than me and has no experience know about teaching? It was a conversation with a peer. Oh, actually, Jenny Tooby. She wasn't a peer at the time. Okay. She hadn't worked here, and she put me onto a course about maths mindsets. Okay. And which it was at hockey. Our kids are playing hockey. She talked to me that Friday night. That Friday night, I went home, got into the course. There was like a week to go, so downloaded every resource I could of this course, just so I could keep looking at it. And then it was about the kids. A year 7 class I taught here, and I kind of always been able to teach, and my classes kind of performed always at grade average or better than grade average, kind of thing. And this class formed 8 marks below average at the end of their semester 1 exams. And I was really struck by the notion that comes out of research that in that case, out of most teachers in research have always blamed the kids. It's been the kids' fault. The kids didn't do that, the kids didn't do this, the parents didn't do that, the school didn't give me enough of this. Yep. And I thought, I'm not going there. And I thought, well, it's my fault. What can I do differently? Yeah. How can I change that? How can I make sure this doesn't happen again in my teaching, that these students do move forward? And so I kind of thought about the stuff I was reading, looked at. I'd been reading a lot of Hattie by that point. Okay. Yeah. And it just kind of evolved from there. You're right. So just different things from there, just try different things, move them on. Yeah.
John Hattie seems to have done a lot.
Yeah, look, I get people don't like a lot of the stuff he says, but he's open conversations in education that weren't open before he came around. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And even if his metadata analysis isn't perfect, it still points you in a direction of where to go to. Right.
You're sort of going down a pathway, and you're analysing your pedagogy, analysing your past ways of teaching. Now, so you sort of come across critical thinking. Why critical thinking?
Yeah, and again, I think that's a bit of an accident, because when I first heard of critical thinking, arrogance, come up a lot in my story, it would. Arrogance would have said, I'm a maths teacher, I always do critical thinking. That's what I teach. I teach critical thinking. And then what happened with that year 7 class, I started to use the Hattie stuff, which is like a rapid formative assessment. So really over their shoulder all the time, giving them feedback quickly. And then I got to take that same class into year 8, which was kind of cool. Saw lots of progress in them. Saw them catch the grade, thankfully, in semester 2, which was good.
Excellent.
And then the next year, and so because now I've got a relationship with the students, I know them pretty well, a lot of them, I kind of was in that position where I could take a few risks. And there's a few people in maths doing some really cool things around problem-based learning, what we call 3-act maths. Okay. So I started to trial some of that. A lot of it was on first implementation failures, but learned a lot from it, and kind of went, yeah, but there's something in here, keep going. And as I did more of that problem-based learning and started to get into the point where I was saying to students, here's a stimulus, what do you notice, what do you wonder, what questions do you arise, come out of that, I started to realise that was different to my practice of here's a textbook, do these 20 questions like I've always shown you how to do. Like I've just shown you how to do 20 exactly the same, be bored to death while you're doing them, but at least you'll be able to do one like that if it comes up in the exam.
Yeah.
Whereas this was going, what are you thinking about? Can you even look at this and get curious and ask questions? And if you do get curious, are you hooked and want to answer that question? And then what can you investigate with mathematics out of this? And I started to look at what I was doing there and started to realise that was so different to my old practice, which I arrogantly called critical thinking. You know,
right.
Solving a worded problem was not critical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I started to go into that path, and obviously the path was cemented when the school went, we're advertising your position, we're looking for a director of teaching and learning with a focus on critical thinking. Okay. So that cemented the path, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So that would have been a whole new process of unpacking old ways that were just so reliable as a teacher. You know, it's just there's the textbook, there's the kid, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
To actually making learning fun.
Yeah, and look, I haven't suffered, particularly at a school like this, which is a really good school, but even in my previous schools, I haven't really suffered in my career from not being able to engage a class.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And one of the things I thought I could do really well was explain a mathematical concept in multiple different ways so that a student thought they understood the concept.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So explaining a student thought they understood the concept. That sounds interesting.
So I could bring them around from a point where they thought, I don't get this, to a point where they thought, oh, I get that, and I can now repeat what he's doing, so I can now do exactly what he's doing, and I can now get these questions correct.
Gotcha.
But that's just a rote learning tool. It's just me being able to explain it in a different way for them to rote learn what I'd already done, but no understanding of what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah, and no understanding of the connection between a similar shape and a trig ratio. No understanding of all those, you know, how trigonometry and equation solving lies together. But I've been able to convince them that in this case you just swap the x and the tan 40 around and you put in your calculator and you're done.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
I'm not to a primary teacher, but hey.
No, that's okay. Yeah. But yeah, the idea of just really convincing that these tricks will work. Just trust me, they'll work, and just do them.
Yeah. So in your sort of research, in your experimental pedagogy, you've come across prime. What's prime?
Yeah. So prime is my attempt to unpack Akara's critical thinking and creative thinking continuum. So they've got a continuum of critical and creative thinking that spans early learners through to our senior learners, and it spans a whole range of different areas of critical thinking.
It's quite chunky.
It's very chunky. It's a 2-page chunky document.
Yeah.
It's got a lot in it, really good stuff, but it's pretty dense.
Yep.
And to make it work in a classroom, a 2-page document, I was starting to go, that's going to be awkward. It's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And I'd come across Prime working with the design faculty on our integrated unit week, our week where we challenge kids to solve a problem.
Yep.
And I was looking at a design task, and I was chatting to them how they would go about doing it for refugees, designing something for refugees to make their life, improve their life. And they brought up this prime idea. And and then in further reading, I kept coming back to this design idea, and prime and other models came up. And so then when I looked at the Akara one, I kind of went, they're asking, can kids pose questions? That's the P. Can a student actually, not can we pose the student a question, but can they pose their own question?
Okay, so that's a P, and it's done by the student, not the teacher.
Yeah, that's right. And teaching the students to look at something, be curious, pose a question, because that's how we need them to be if they're going to look at a situation and improve it. Yeah, in any situation, their family, not just in the school situation, their family, their community, their workplace, whatever. Yeah, later on down the track. So pose a question. And then I started looking further, and I thought, the next section was kind of like, can students research, make connections between existing ideas and new ideas? Do they have skills to be able to do that? And that was the R for research, which sums a huge amount of work. It's not just going along and picking up a textbook and research.
Done my research.
Yeah, no, that's right. But the R kind of simplified it for me, that idea of, for me, a lot of it in mathematics is, can I make connections to old material? Can I research what I've already done to see where it's going to go further?
Yep.
Yeah. I was throwing up ideas for ideation is what they call it in design, and again in the ACARA curriculum, it's about making ideas. How will I go about solving this problem?
Okay. So in tradie terms, throw it against the wall and see what sticks?
Yeah, possibly, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't know many tradie terms. But yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so and I think that the exciting thing there is to be able to get different ideas, and too often in the classroom it's been, this is the idea, the way you do it, just do it this way.
Yeah.
Whereas this gives students an opportunity to have a look at a situation and go, well, what ideas do I have? What do I need to explore? And that's the other thing with this prime model, is it's not a linear model. I think you do have to pose a question first, so you know what you're investigating. Yeah. But maybe you'll jump to ideas, then go to research, or maybe you'll research something first, then formulate ideas.
Well, it reflects reality, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, that's right, yeah. And then the M was to make. It was all about how making the solution, creating the solution, putting it together. What method did you use, etc. Explaining that solution, making sure it's clear, succinct, or well supported. Yeah. And then the E was evaluate, and there's almost a page of that in the ACARA. Yeah. Continue. There's almost a page of how good students are reflecting on their own learning.
So there's 2 pages, and a page is dedicated to reflecting on your own learning.
Pretty much, that's right. And evaluating your work, and how could you improve your work, how could you make it better, and I think that's something that we don't give students enough time to do at school, when we feel like when I'm saying we, I'm really saying me, because I can't speak for others. No,
I agree 100%. Yeah. As a primary teacher, we give them feedback, and it's up to them to look at it. Yeah. But we need to be encouraging. Sorry, that's right. You're on camera here, not me.
No, no, but that's right. It's that time to reflect and to build on their ideas, to say, you know what, it's not just about I did it, as the student said to me yesterday, I've already done this. It's about, have you learnt this, and do you understand this? Yeah. And so once we get to that stage, how do we build time to make that effective? Yeah. And my own belief is that slow is actually fast. So to slow down, and to give students time to understand conceptually what's going on, allows you later on down in the stage that you're teaching in or whatever to actually accelerate the learning, because you're not revisiting tricks and tools that they've forgotten. Yes. They're building on a concept they understand and they like and they know about.
Understanding. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I think, no, I won't go into what I think here. But I think, sometimes we can put too much assessment in, and as teachers we sort of like to see, how much did they learn? Yeah. Rather than thinking of the long-term game. These guys have 12 years here. Yes. Let's make strong connections. Yes. A 50% mark here on a little test that may assess their superficial understanding or what they can remember over the past 2 weeks. In 10 years' time, that may have a deep learning that's actually matured and grown.
And that's the challenge in our job, is that we don't see the results of our job immediately. Yeah. Like you talk about a tradie, they've finished the job's done, they can see whatever they've done, it's done. We don't see that necessarily, because what we teach today, we won't know if they've truly learnt and understood it until they use it again much later on. Yeah. 6 months, 12 months later. Yeah. That's when the true test is for us of our job. Yeah. Yeah.
So, for those parents out there that are tuning in, what kind of advice could you give them? So at home with their child, or just out and about, what kind of advice could you give them to foster critical thinking in their own children?
Yeah, I think to accept failure, to accept that kids, it's okay to fail and not be able to do something, because that's what you learn from. That's when that's what all the mind research says, your mind fires up, your brain's forming new pathways they talk about now in the research. There are also strong emotional moments when you fail. And so a strong emotion is something that's good to hook something on. So failure is not a bad thing, failure is a good thing. And then you go, well, how do I get beyond that failure? What do I do to overcome that? What do I learn to overcome that? Therefore, hook that learning to that strong emotion. So failure is good. To not be worried about marks and what mark I'm getting, but be more interested in what has the student learned, understood, the child learned, understood.
Yeah.
What's the depth there?
That's a big one.
Yeah, because a lot of our assessments, students can just parrot back what we have taught them and look like they're an A student.
Which is a good indicator of how obedient a student is.
That's right, yes.
More than how their thinking is processing based on what they've just learned.
Yeah.
How much have they changed their thinking.
Yeah. But I think also just keeping their curiosity about the world going, keep asking them, what are they seeing? Keep having conversations with them about things that are relevant about the world and keep engaging them in that. And I recently heard from a colleague who said that most of the conversations parents have with kids have an agenda. So you start off with an agenda of, I want to sit down and talk to you about your phone use, your device use, or the friends you're having or something like that. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Whereas those free-flowing, natural conversations, are they a thing of the past? Are we, we can probably still have an agenda, but the agenda may be to bring them into noticing things around them and wondering things about things around them, like looking at things and inviting them into that whole posing question sort of scenario.
I suppose you've got to be intentional about creating space and time to have those conversations. Yeah.
A lot of people talk about cars. When the kids are captive audiences, picking them up after sport or driving home after school. Yeah. That's the time where they can... Okay. I personally found my kids were so tired they didn't want to interact with me. But there are moments, obviously, that parents can make to have that happen.
Yeah, okay. Well, what's the ultimate enemy in teaching a child to think critically?
In a school-based situation, I think it's a mark. I think it's too much of a... To me, our education system has become like a little Olympics, and the goal of the Olympics is to accrue as many 90s as you can. Yeah. Whereas education actually isn't about a mark, it's not about a 90, and education is about how much can I learn, what's my depth of knowledge, how much do I appreciate things in society, how much do I look at society, and what can I now contribute to society as a result of my education. I think that's... So I think the big enemy is trying to just accumulate cereal box tokens, is how it was described to me by the Vice Chancellor of Sydney University at the time.
Wow, yeah. Cereal box
Which
tokens.
Is probably a little bit old these days, because I don't know if cereal boxes still have tokens in them, but when I was a kid, you used to get the box of cereal and there was something down the bottom you wanted. So you used to try and tip your cereal out and see if you could see it at the bottom, and always hope you got to it before your sister did. Yeah. And the idea that education has just become a collection of tokens along the way, but when you leave, you don't really have a deep knowledge and understanding that's necessary for what comes next in life.
Yeah, I can't remember the quote totally. The inventor or the guy who coined outcome-based education.
All right.
I googled it. I might have to take this out, but I googled it recently, and it was it had more to do with business measuring growth and success in education. Yes. But then I went back to seeing what his first vision of it was, and it was to embed deep learning in the students and to create a lifelong love of learning, not just the number that's given at the end, but to have that deeper understanding and experience through learning. And now somehow some business people have got their ideas on it and fold it, and we can measure growth and data and
that's right, that's true.
Which is good, which is great. It's how we get progress, but it's not what people are ultimately about when you're working with a person rather than a machine. Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with aspiring to achieve a high level of marks in your education or anything. I mean, we all, maybe not all of us, there's definitely a proportion of us that love to be measured. I love to be measured.
He's a mathematician.
It's why I love golf and that is striving for a better handicap, or why I love martial arts, getting the new belt. It's that measurement. Yeah. But it's measured against a set of outcomes. which is what you were just talking about, measuring against a set of outcomes. But it's also like doing it for a personal reason or personal satisfaction reason as well. It's like I think about our kids here, students here who just engage so widely in all those rich co-curricular environments, and they're developing so many of those skills of collaboration, critical thinking. Like you think of all those band leaders and performing arts leaders, and even the kids who are in those groups, and they're learning how to work together. They're learning how to be creative. They're learning how to collaborate, how to think critically when it's not going right, and So there's so much to be seen in it, and a lot of those students will go on and aspire to and achieve 90s plus. I think it's that breadth. You just don't just want to achieve a 90 plus without wanting to do, learn and get deeper in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And deep learning, it's a breadth of knowledge that will give you a 90 plus. Yeah.
Very important. Now I did read in your blog. Paul Rikmanis has a blog, by the way, that you said collaborative learning fosters critical thinking.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to expand on that a bit?
Look, we're looking at 6 C's, and so we've got 6 directors, and every director is looking so we've got critical thinking, collaboration, creativity. I know I'm going to miss something here. Communication, citizenship, and character. There you go. But none of them sit on their own. Like you can't think critically without getting feedback from others, without having someone else input and help you reflect and engage. And working collaboratively helps you at that point where you're totally stuck, where you don't know what you're doing when you can't, when you can't make forward progress. You can't pass on the results of your critical thinking without good communication skills. You need the character aspects of perseverance and grit to develop critical thinking. So they're all so interrelated, and critical thinking itself is something that will develop good citizens of the world. And as Akara pointed out in their continuum, critical thinking and creativity, they just sit together, because to fulfill your critical thinking, making and evaluate, you need to be creative. You need to have the ideas that are creative to do it. So they're all going to fit together anyway, and that collaboration aspect that you just mentioned, I think just enhances the whole critical thinking process, not working in isolation, but finding routines in the classroom that allow students to collaborate with others, but to be individually accountable for what they do.
Oh, well, if you want to check out more of Paul's blog, I really like how he's super honest with his approach to his development as a teacher, and he's always pushing himself as a teacher to develop and just be on the forefront of what's happening. And check it out. You'll enjoy going on the journey with him. The blog's the name is
Classroom Critical Thinking. There you go. I think critical thinking was taken.
Classroom Critical Thinking, where all the action happens. Paul Rikmanis, thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.